river is just such a wonderful metaphor for life. But whether you're rafting, kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, whatever, being in this free-flowing environment of a river teaches you so much about life. So sometimes in life, you need to eddy out and take a break.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes in life, you don't have any other option. You just got to buckle your chin strap a little tighter and lean forward in the boat, and you got to just go with the best line you can find because you have no other option. But it also teaches you the lesson of, like, you need to know exactly what you're getting yourself into.
Well, welcome back, everyone. This is the Sawyer On-Water podcast on location. We are shooting a heartbeat of the river today on the Nantahala River in North Carolina. And I'm really happy to be here with Brad. I'm going to turn it over to him in just a little bit. The Heartbeat of the River is basically a series that we do in conjunction with Wild Oregon Girl. And it's really one of those things is that every river has a heartbeat. And so that's what we're going to try and do today is kind of give you a little bit of the heartbeat of the Nantahala River. Brad, turn it over to you. Go ahead and introduce yourself and what you're currently doing with the Nantahala and kind of your history with the river.
Yeah, so my name is Brad Burden, and I've been out of paddling for the last 20 years and have kind of got back into it now, and going to be doing some instruction in the Louisville, Kentucky area and also down here on the Nantahala as well. Very fortunate to get to partner with Sawyer Paddles in this new endeavor of mine, kind of re-entering the whitewater world. But I started here in 1997 as a raft guide, moved down here the day after I graduated high school, and started raft guiding, and then that led to also joining their instruction team, and really still is, but especially through the 90s and early 2000s, some of the best kayak instructors in the world lived and trained and right here. And the Nantahala Outdoor Center is one of the premier places in the world for guiding, kayak instruction.
Give me a couple back paddles.
Whatever people want to do on the river and in the mountains.
Nice. And so, yeah, there's a lot of river activity here, a lot of kayaking, a lot of whitewater rafting. So let's talk a little bit about your early years as a river guide there.
So starting off as a river guide here on the Nantahala, and the NOC operates on a lot of the southeastern rivers, and they like to check you out on the Nantahala and then send you off to other rivers like the Ocoee or the French Broad or the Nolichucky or the Chattooga. But I really fought to stay here on the Nantahala because kayaking is what I wanted to primarily do. And so I got to stay here on the Nantahala, which really advanced my career quite a bit because this is the center. And so I was able to be kind of where people could see me, the higher ups.
Right.
And that enabled me to then get into instruction, and then I started competing in freestyle kayaking and extreme kayaking and things. And so, but the NOC was my springboard into all that.
About how many years did it take you in your raft guiding before you were able to start pursuing that kayaking dream?
Yeah. My first 2 summers here, so I'd been the summers of 97, 98, primarily just raft guiding. And it was, you usually take 2 trips down the river a day.
Right.
And then I would actually paddle on my lunch break in between my trips. And then again after work. Of course, I was, 18, 19, 20 years old. But by my 3rd summer here, the summer of 99, I was teaching kayaking. And then by the summer of 2000, I started competing in kayaking.
And so the kayaking was something you were kind of doing hand in hand. Were you still kind of doing the raft guiding to get some income, or were you actually able to do some instructing back then as well?
So after I became an instructor here at the NOC in the summer of 99, I no longer raft guided unless it was just a random day where they needed extra people. So I was primarily just working in our instruction program and started doing a lot of like their kids programs and things. And me and one of my best friends in paddling, Pete Gallo, we would do a 2-week-long kids freestyle camp where kids would come here and we would take them all over the Southeast. And some of those kids ended up being like on the U.S. National Junior Freestyle team, and some of them went on careers as freestyle paddlers and things. And then that led to lots of other opportunities. I worked on the Putalapu River for Chris Spilius, worked in Mexico, raft guided and led kayak trips in Panama for the NOC. So that
Yeah, and
led me
that's
to
one
a lot
of the things that
opportunities.
we've noticed multiple times when we've interviewed folks is that river guiding is a transient lifestyle where you can literally, you can take that skill and you can travel all over the
All
world.
over the world, yeah.
And any place there's a river, there's work.
Right.
Which is really pretty incredible. You know, there's not a lot. I mean, yeah, you could probably work in a kitchen too, but it's just not as entertaining. You're not really going to see the full area if you're going to go work in a kitchen. You know, that's kind of the kitchen seems to be that's the ski industry mode where you work in the kitchen, so you ski powder all day until you have to go to shift.
Well, and there's a lot of people at the NOC that are like that too. They love the kayaking aspect, and they don't want to be on the water all day long working and then go play on the water. So they'll work in the outfitter store or in reservations or on the restaurant, so that when they get off, they're dry and rested and they can go play.
Yeah. And forward.
But for me, I always wanted to be on the water. I wanted to either, raft guide, and then I looked up and idolized all the kayak instructors here, and those were the guys I wanted to be like. So as soon as I got to be an instructor, it was all about just, seeing if you could teach the advanced classes and the freestyle classes and the creeking classes.
So, because that's the way, like the kayak instructing is somewhat of a progression, right? So explain that to folks is kind of when you initially start out, so you get is it similar to like ski instructing where you get your level 1, level 2, level 3, and each one of those levels kind of progresses you up in the difficulty scale?
Yeah, so the American Canoe Association, the ACA, is the governing body for kayak instruction, and
they just had their 145th anniversary just the other day. We were at the celebration, so very nice.
So they're the governing body of that, and there's 4 or maybe even 5 levels of certification. And so most of the Whitewater kayak instructors here at the NOC would probably start off level 2 or level 3, or depending on their skill level, maybe even jump right to a level 4 instructor. Back then, I don't really know exactly how it works today, but back then, most of our people who were checking out and becoming instructors, they were really, really good whitewater paddlers. So everybody was pretty much entering in at that level 4 or level 3 level, and then progressing on to be instructor trainers within a year or two.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
So and that's kind of one of those things is that having those levels, that gives you that something that you can advance to, and you can look in, like kind of get your next sight set on. I'm going to get this ticked off. I'm going to get this ticked off. Does that typically take like a summer per each level, or?
I don't know exactly, because I entered in right at the level 4 in the summer of '99, and then just by the time that first summer was over, I was teaching a lot of the advanced classes and some of the class 4 river running and freestyle type classes. But just the whole environment here at the NOC really lended itself to pushing yourself in Whitewater, because this is before the Charlotte Center was built. This was one of the main, and still is, one of the main training grounds for slalom paddlers.
Right.
So we had Olympic gold medalists training here. We had some of the best freestyle athletes, some of the best class 5 creekers, the top instructors, all living and working and playing together. So it really bred this environment where people were pushing each other in a very healthy way. And by doing that, it also pushed the sport to a high level as well.
Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of just the economic driver around this river system. So, obviously anybody that drives into this area, there's a raft company on every corner.
Yes.
And, NOC is definitely kind of the center and the hub.
Right.
They definitely have the biggest footprint for sure. But, because you were in it, 20 some odd years ago, and now you're coming back into it, kind of share with me and the audience of just kind of what are some of the economic drivers that have been here and really just kind of make this place what it is?
Yeah, I mean, the Nantahala River is in the county of Swain County, and the closest city is about 20 miles away, Bryson City, which is also in that same county. And one of the things I notice now is the town of Bryson City and the county, Swain County, and the river community very much work in tandem together, because the locals and the local economy realize how big of an economic impact the river is. That wasn't always the case. I think in years past there was maybe some conflict between people who are local here, because a lot of the river community are people who are coming from outside the local community.
There's definitely a lot more. There's a lot more talk about the outdoor outdoor recreation and how much of a driver it is,
Yes.
and how much of a contributor it is to these local economies. And yeah, you always get some of the local folks. I mean, our retail store is in little Gold Hill, Oregon, and it's like, in the summertime, it's Rivertown,
Right.
I mean, June, July, August, even September, it's just constant river traffic, outfitting traffic, recreational boaters, that whole thing. Let's go with the forward.
Yeah, so, here in the Nantahala Gorge,
That's good. Stop.
not only do we have great whitewater here on the Nantahala River, but there's also a world-class mountain biking area. The Sawyer mountain biking region is 10 minutes away. You have great lakes for stand-up paddleboarding and lake paddling. There's the Appalachian Trail runs right through the Nantahala Outdoor Center. The bridge that goes across the Nantahala is part of the Appalachian Trail. So you have a lot of through hikers that come through here, campers, backpackers. There's some rock climbing. It's not, probably wouldn't be call it world-class rock climbing.
Right.
There is some
But
rock
there
climbing
is something to that too. So if I'm hearing you right, is that the Nantahala has that multi-sport element, and that's the piece. Is like if you have that multi-sport element, then you can attract more people to try various things, and you can get some of that cross-pollination in the activity space where, like you were talking about the youth groups, where like getting those youngsters into a camp, and paddling might not be their biggest thing, but you want to be able to provide that hook to them, and then maybe they are going to go zip lining and go rock climbing and do some of those other things that basically kind of tie in with the paddling. And then in turn, it's like one of those things. You got to get the paddle in their hand first, and then to see if they're really going to be into it. And like you said, some of them do blossom into being, Olympic contenders.
Yeah. I mean, we have currently the number one Olympic slalom kayaker female is Evie Leafart. And she literally grew up on this river. Her dad taught kayaking here, and he's the head of the Nantahala Racing Club. And so she grew up here and is right now, like I said, the number one. She was in the Olympics back in, what are we on? Get ready, 28. So she was 24 Olympics and got a medal in boatercross, and is still really highly ranked and has a really good chance of medaling in the 28 Olympics, which will be in the United States.
Yeah, because it's going to be at Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And, the Olympics are going to be based out of LA, but the Whitewater portion is going to be at Oklahoma City.
Exactly.
Which is actually, and there was the boatercross, the U.S. Boatercross Championships, I think it was today.
Okay.
In Charlotte.
Yeah.
And so that gal is probably there.
I don't know. I think she's
maybe
actually abroad training right now. She just got through with some World Cups. So I think she's doing some. But if she
Gotcha.
may have been back for that, I'm not sure.
Yeah. But that event was happening while we were rolling out of town, coming over here. So yeah, crazy kind of. And actually, we were at the ACA 145th anniversary function last night, and they were talking about how one of the events that they were putting on everybody's radar is an event that's happening here, I think next weekend. So it was very obvious that the river community, even with the park community of Charlotte, are they're constantly trying to get youth into paddling, and so wherever that paddling program is, they're gonna let people know about it, and some of the folks that were actually part of the presentation last night were coming up here. Let's go forward.
And what a lot of people don't know, the Nantahala River, everybody knows about the Class 2-3 family-friendly section that we're on right now. But below where we're going to be taking out, where the Outfitter Center is, there's the Slalom Center where Olympic athletes train. There's also a freestyle hole where they had the 2013 World Championships. And upstream of the commercial put-in and the natural riverbed is a Class 5 section of the Nantahala River. So I don't think there's too many other rivers in the world I can say they have a family-friendly rafting and kayak construction stretch, Olympic slalom training, world-class freestyle training, and pretty darn good Class 5 creeking all in the same river.
Nice. can you give the folks a little bit of history of the area?
Yeah.
Because obviously this is one of those older whitewater areas that definitely, it's not as the whitewater outfitting is not as old as the ACA, but it's like, I'm sure this was one of those places that was getting going because it was already well established when you wanted to come here. Let's go back paddle.
Yeah, I was fortunate. I started coming down here as a kid with my dad. My dad was a flat water and downriver racer, so he would come here to compete in the early 80s, and I got to come here as a kid and camp out and go down the river and things. And like I said, started working here the day after I graduated high school, but this place has always been pretty special to me, so I kind of have been a nerd of the history of it.
Right.
It was founded in 1971 by Payson Kennedy and Horace Holden. They were from Atlanta and would come up here to canoe, and they discovered this place, and there was an old gas station right where the outfitter store currently is called the Toten Terry, and I think there was a little motel there.
Got it.
And they got the money together and bought it and started a rafting company. And started taking families down the river, and it just kind of grew and blossomed from there into one of the world's largest outfitters.
Ironically, that was 3 years after Sawyer started manufacturing paddles.
Okay, so yeah.
So yeah, amazing. So yeah, that's kind of the thing, and that's kind of what it takes, right? Like these guys had a vision.
Yes.
And that's a lot of what it seems to take to get people into paddle sports. Like
Yes.
They go on some sort of venture. Like you said, you came up here all the time with your folks, and it was kind of a thing that you and your dad did, and that kind of introduced you to that. And I talk a lot about what I call outfitter children. Mm-hmm. And it's like if you're raised in an outfitting community, you actually get exposed to a lot of things that people don't. Right. And I think there's probably even industry children where it's like if your parents are in the business, as they say, then yeah, you're going to get a lot of behind the scenes just paddle sport activity.
100%.
And so like a lot of those kids do get on the rivers in very young ages, and it's like my kids were on the river when they were 2 and 3 years old, and the river was just kind of part of what we did. And it's one of those things that as an outfitter, a lot of times they say that you give up riches for rich in life.
Right.
And it's one of those things where the things you can do as an outfitter parent is include your children in these things that you're going to do. It's like, yeah, they may tell you they want to go to Disneyland, but you have a world-class river right here, and so you take them on it, and they do start to just enjoy it. And as they get older, they tend to get into different elements of it. Some of them get into the more whitewater and more rowdy elements of it. Some of them get into kayaking. So for you, it was kind of start guiding and then kayaking. You did mention that you have a 15-year-old.
I do.
So
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how your child has kind of been able to explore this and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so primarily she is just rafted and duckied. Would love to get her in a kayak, but she's not too keen on that idea.
Right.
But she loves coming down here and just going down the river. And this summer, it was really funny. Got her and my wife in a double ducky and took them down the river. And had my daughter was in the front, my wife was in the back, and put my daughter in the front so she could get the splashies and things. But my wife did not like the idea of being in control and guiding from the back. And so they very quickly switched, and Eva, my daughter, just took my wife down the river, followed Dad. I was out in front in a kayak, and she's definitely a natural at it. But I don't know that the river life is necessarily calling her, but at 15, you never know.
Right, exactly. And I think the hope is that if even if it's not something they end up doing as a profession, is that they learn the benefit of it and respect the river and really choose to basically get on trips when they can, even they get into their professional lives, is that the river is kind of that release for them.
Exactly.
And it's also it's a comfortable space where they can go spend a couple days. My children, neither one of them work in the industry, but because they grew up just running rivers, it is something they look forward to doing all the time.
Right.
You know, and my oldest son actually proposed to his now wife on the Lower Rogue River.
Nice.
You know,
Yeah.
and if he would have known that they could have weddings at the U.S. National Whitewater Center in Charlotte, he probably would have tried to put that in as an option. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. It's like, you know, you can't force them into it, and if you force them into it, then they tend to not
Right.
get into it at all. But you just kind of expose them to it, you know. And
Yeah.
I think that's what most, you know, parents that are paddlers just work on that technique of just exposing.
Yeah, there's so much life lessons that can be learned from the river. And like you said, it's just a great outlet. I mean, where else are you going to come and just, you know, float down this you know, beautiful place, whether it's whitewater or not, just being out in nature. To me, the whitewater adds an element to it that I
Right.
really like. I've always just been at ease and comfort in water, and I love moving water and just kind of being out in nature in that source. I've never been one to mountain climb or rock climb. I always like going down rivers.
Nice. Let's go forward. Hands up. All right, so we talked a little bit about kind of the history of how it began. Now let's talk a little bit about the history of just kind of like some of the folks that you have come across here on the river, and some of the legends of the river, because a lot of rivers, like as much as the river has its heartbeat, the heartbeat is continued on by the people that shape it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many here at the Nantahala. Just you go back through. I mentioned Payson Kennedy, one of the founders. He wrote a book that's still available called NOC Stories, and it talks a lot about all of those legends and kind of things throughout the years. But what you find is it's almost like a family with. You know, the people who trained me, they were trained by somebody who was trained by somebody.
Absolutely.
So it's almost like a lineage, right? So for me, a lot of my heroes and the people that were my mentors were people like Chris Spilius, who goes and, you know, starts his own kayak company on the Footalofu.
Right.
Ken Castorp was one of the big names here, and he started his own business. Matter of fact, it's right on the other side of the street from where we're at. It's a kayak construction business called Endless River Adventures. Shane Benedict is one of the main instructors here in the 80s and 90s, and he goes on to found Liquid Logic Kayaks.
Right. Nice.
So,
Nice.
But then people like Jimmy Holcomb, that a lot of people have never heard of, he was actually the first employee of the NOC who wasn't one of the family members.
Aha.
And
Out of the fold, as they say.
exactly, but he married the founder's daughter,
Aha.
and they had a son, Andrew Holcomb, who went on to become one of the best whitewater paddlers ever, was a multi-time member of the U.S. national freestyle team, and is now works in the industry as a rep for Jackson Kayak, Warner Paddles,
nice.
amongst
Nice.
other companies. So
Absolutely.
you see those. Shane Williams, who I was in contact with to get us the raft for today, he was one of my mentors, and now he's back working for the NOC and is kind of in charge of all the rafting and paddling sports at the NOC. So you just see so many of them through the years, and some of them stick in the industry.
Right.
The ones who don't, you find that what made them great on the river also makes them great in other aspects of life. So they go on to be engineers or doctors or whatever, and they still maybe paddle sometimes.
Right, absolutely.
And it's been really interesting for me getting out of the sport, coming back to it. So many people about my age are getting back into the sport. Maybe it's because now they're a little bit more... their families are a little bit older.
Yeah,
they get a little more free time, maybe a little bit more disposable income, and they're getting back into the sport, because of that.
Yeah, I talk a little bit about that as I reference like moms getting back into the skiing after
Yes.
after being gone for 10, 12 years, But yeah, and let's talk a little bit about just some of the stories of the river that
Okay.
some of the things that have happened in your time here when you're a raft guide, being funny, being silly, being scary.
Okay.
What are some of those guide stories? Let's go with a couple forwards.
Every year, they would have at the end of the year, they would call it Christmas in August. And it was a big celebration because about August is when a lot of the seasonal staff would be leaving.
Uh-huh.
And so they had this big festival just for the staff. And we would have like ducky races through the falls, and we would stack as many duckies as we could. and then they would have like a slideshow at the raft room that night.
Right.
And then there would be a big party that night for all the raft guides and just anybody who worked at the center. And there was a lot of stories that I could tell off air that happened at those parties and things.
This is a PG channel,
right.
so
but one of the things we would do is we would every now this river's dam controlled, and it usually turns on in the morning and then it turns off in the afternoon. But it's based on the level of the lake. And if the lake ever gets too high, they might have to release longer. And so every now and then you'll get a 24/7 release. And we would when that would hit, especially if there was a full moon, we would do a nighttime paddle.
Oh,
and
yeah, absolutely.
The staff housing area is about 6 miles upstream, sits right on the river. And so we could just walk across the street and put in. And we always were making sure we were safe. We would have our PFD, our helmet, our spray skirt, our paddle, and our boat. But let's just say that's the only things we would wear on those nighttime paddles. So and some of those things were fun that we did.
All right, let's go forward.
This is a pretty mild river, but as a raft guide back then, they've done away with this now, but we used to have guide-assisted trips. So the hardest part of guiding on this river was not getting your crew down it. Anybody can get there, if you've been trained, you can get your crew down this river.
Right.
But you had to also pick families that you knew were kind of adventurous and encourage them to be in their own raft without a guide and follow you down. And so as you were guiding, you were constantly turning back upstream and telling the family behind you.
The point and give, follow me and stay in the right lane.
Exactly. And inevitably, I know where every rock is on this river. But those families that are coming up from Atlanta for the weekend and the dad's just adventurous, they don't know where every rock is. And so they would get stuck on a lot of rocks, and you've got to go back up and help them get unstuck and things. And that always was the hardest part of guiding on this river.
Yeah, you talk about doing the moonlight trips. There's actually there's one of the things that they used to do back in the day on the Rogue River is they would inner tube into Mule Creek Canyon.
Okay.
And then take out at Coffee Pot and hike back up.
Okay.
And that was one of those little guide after hours kind of things that not everybody knows about and not really many commercial outfits talk about.
Right.
But it's something that you gotta let the kids play. You gotta be able to have fun with it. Let's back it up. And forward. So yeah, and now any kind of life lesson events that you could share with the folks as far as maybe not in the raft, it might be in a kayak, as far as just some of those things where you're just kind of like, whoa, I don't think I'm going to do that again.
Yeah, I think the river is just such a wonderful metaphor for life.
Yeah.
So whether you're rafting, kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, whatever, being in this free-flowing environment of a river teaches you so much about life. So sometimes in life, you need to eddy out and take a break.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes in life, you don't have any other option. You just got to buckle your chin strap a little tighter and lean forward in the boat, and you got to just go with the best line you can find because you have no other option. Like if you're stuck in the middle of a canyon in South America, you've got to run this river. But it also teaches you the lesson of you need to know exactly what you're getting yourself into. So all of those things I think are metaphors for life. Look in the direction you want to go. Those are things that I think just apply over no matter what you're doing, what career, raising a family, what things are needed in this moment. What I love about Whitewater, especially kayaking, but rafting too, is you have to be really committed mentally to what's going on in that moment and not be thinking about other aspects of your life. And I think when we're at our jobs or when we're dealing with our families, we need to have that same kind of mindset.
Yep. The river is a big release, so it's different in that way because a lot of us come to the river to kind of let go of a lot of those things. And a lot of times, the river is very unique in that way that the river actually can make it so you're not worrying about a lot of those stresses of your other day-to-day life. And whether you're paddling whitewater or kayaking whitewater or fishing in a river, it gives you that ability to just kind of let go of those things. Most rivers don't have self-service, and you just kind of let it be.
Right.
It's like nothing is too important. I'm going to take my hour or two and get out there and enjoy it. And that's definitely something that I think will just always continue, because like that's the thing. Like even in tough times, like we still need to recreate. We need to get out and have fun and have that release, right? And that release might come with people, using their own gear that they own, and not maybe doing a 10-day trip, but still like they're getting out there and getting out in the river as that release, for sure.
And then you also get into the importance for awareness of our rivers, so that we can make sure that these rivers are here for not just the next generation, but multiple generations down the line, and that they're clean and accessible. And so I think the more people recreate on these rivers, the more that they are aware, and then the more that they want to help do their part to
Go
keep
forward
it clean.
a little bit. Yeah, and that's one of those things. So like out in the West, we've seen a lot of dams removed on rivers. The Rogue River had several dams removed. Just recently, the Klamath River had several dams removed, and now we're able to whitewater raft on a section of river that was not free flowing for over 100 years.
Right.
And actually there were a lot of government entities, a lot of state entities, a lot of tribes involved.
Yeah.
But the tribes actually just did a full descent of the whole river system from beginning to the end. And that's really pretty incredible to have that happen. That's like 40 minutes from our factory.
Oh, cool.
And so like it's a big deal, because it is national news.
Right.
Like, it is something that is literally changing in our space, which is really pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
And so as far as on the conservation piece, this river seems to be pretty nice and healthy as far as rivers in the east that we've seen. And what are some of the challenges that the Nantahala and other rivers face here, that are these recreational rivers that folks should be aware of?
Yeah, I don't know if the Nantahala really faces this. This is in the middle of the national forest, the Nantahala National Forest, and the Park Service here and the outfitters really do a great job of a shared vision of keeping this place accessible but clean. Some of the other rivers in the area aren't as clean. You have the Pigeon River over on the Tennessee-North Carolina border that was downstream of a paper mill. And that's been a major thing that they've done over the last 30 years, is to clean that river. And they've really done a remarkable job of making it to where we want to keep it clean and things. And so it's really improved a lot in that respect. But then Hurricane Helene did a major blow. We want to pull over here. This is the beaching area above the falls.
Let's go forward.
Hurricane Helene really devastated a lot of the river communities and reshaped a lot of the rivers in this area, including the Pigeon River. The Green River in North Carolina is completely made different, and the dam that was above it has been wiped out. The Nolichucky River in Tennessee also was completely just the rapids completely redone because of Helene. And so many people lost their lives, lost their homes. And so what was really interesting about that is watching the river communities and the outfitters. They really banded together with the locals and put recreation on hold during that time to make sure that people had the necessities that they had to survive, and now to get that infrastructure built back up and to start now having recreation again on those rivers.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. It's like literally when some tragic event happens, the outfitting community and communities as a whole really do bond together. Yep. And we've seen that with Hurricane Ian. We saw that with the flooding in Montana. We saw that with the wildfires out in Oregon. And absolutely here, when those river communities are hit, the the entire community, the entire big picture river community does come to help folks. And yeah, that was one of those things. It's like even out in Oregon, we were participating in events and fundraisers for the rebuilding of that area, and just from helping repair that devastation of that hurricane flooding that came through there. So that's definitely one of those things that is kind of just I would say somewhat unique about the paddle sports industry.
Yes.
And even some of the bigger vendor brands, really do step up and support those recovery efforts, which is really kind of special.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so I think that's definitely one of those things that is very very unique to the space we're in. And I'm sure that you're happy to return into that, and happy to see that there's rivers still here to run for yourself and for your kids as they're growing up. And I think a lot of us in this industry kind of take it as we want it to be here for our kids and our kids' kids and their kids.
Absolutely. And then also the community around the river. I've been away from it for 20 years. With social media, you're able to kind of stay in touch with what's going on and stay in touch with people. But I came back this summer and went to Golly Fest and ran into people that I'd not seen for 20 years. And they just welcomed me back into the community as if I'd never left. And I really don't know that you would find that in other places.
Yeah.
And then, starting to do my own instruction things based out of Louisville, Kentucky, and reaching out to people like Sawyer Paddles, who are just think that the story of somebody re-emerging back into the sport.
Right.
I think it resonates with people, and it's like, oh, I can do that. I've been on the couch for a while, but I can get back into paddling.
Yep.
So I've just been blown away by the community.
To kind of get back in the game for sure. And it's one of those things that we're excited to follow your journey and see where it goes for sure. And I appreciate you coming out and spending the time with me. I think we're going to switch over some things and run a little rapid and shoot some kayak footage.
The Nantahala Falls is probably the most famous rapid in the world.
There you go. The Natty Falls are coming up next, so we will have that on our feed as well. But for everybody out there, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sawyer On-Water podcast. If you did enjoy this episode, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your river community. We would like to throw a shout out to the Nantahala Outdoor Center for letting us use the raft and providing a shuttle to drop us off at the put-in. So little logistical help, which is always nice. And, if you want to hear more or find out more about us, check us out at paddlesandoars.com. And until then, be safe, be kind, and we will see you on the river. So, tell us what we got coming up here.
So this is the Nantahala Falls. When you're running raft trips down here, this is for a lot of people, it's their first ever rafting trip, right? Right. So they're about to run their first ever Class 3 rapid. And it's perfect the way this river's set up because they have 8 miles to warm up to prepare. And then you've got this nice, fluffy, big Class 3 rapid right at the end, and then the takeout's right there.
Nice.
There's photographers there to take people's pictures as they go through. But it's a great little rapid. It's a really long, continuous Class 2 plus lead in, and then kind of a double drop Class 3.
Nice.
Nice left to right tongue that kind of goes through, but there's a pretty munchy hole right of center.
Nice.
And it's a great rapid.
All right, well, let's go ahead. I'll let you give the command.
All right. We're going to run it just kind of left of center to start.
I gotcha.
This big rock over here on the left, which people can't see. Maybe they'll get to see what's called Billboard Rock. So
nice.
the eddy behind it, when we're running this with kayak guests, it's kind of our first staging eddy.
I gotcha.
And we always try to see how many eddies we can catch coming through here. It's good training ground. And then even in the middle of the falls, there's a couple eddies that, even for advanced kayakers, is maybe a little difficult to catch. Nice. But hopefully later I'll be able to do. So as we approach the falls, let's go all forward on the All forward there. We want to be just left of center. We're in a good spot. Now we're going to go back with a right-hand angle. So give me a little, just a little back right there. Perfect. Now all forward. We're going to pull into this eddy. Excellent. So that's it.